Welcome back to another video right here on Free Will Photos. Today we're going to be taking a look at the color adjustment tool inside of ON1 Photo Raw. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump right into it. Now on the top line here you have your mask option, you can rename your gear, your reset, and then to delete the application or the filter. The next line down is opacity, and then the next line down are a few presets here, and you can see, I'm sorry, give me a second, there we go. You can see by clicking foliage it jumps to the greens and it gives those a little bit more saturation. If I choose fall, it makes things a little bit more yellow, jump into the greens. But if you go to the yellows, you'll see that it gives a little bit more of a yellow saturation and then brings the hue more towards orange. And of course, desert will obviously increase some of the reds, the oranges, and probably even some of the yellows. So these are really cool to play around with if you are like, all right, I just want to see what I got. And you can create your own styles. Once you can just hit save here. All right. That's underneath the more. You click more and then you go down to save after you've made your adjustments, and it saves it just as a preset for this particular filter, which will come in really handy if you're doing the same color adjustments on a consistent basis. Now I'm going to reset this and we're going to get down into each one of these color options, right, or color ranges. These are predefined, but then you can choose the hue and you can choose how far it goes into that range of color. All right. Now, right now, this is over the entire image. There is no mask. So you're just going to have to know, and we'll get to in a second how to use the eyedropper tool, but you'll just have to know what colors are in your photo, and that's easy just by looking at them. Now, one of the cool things that you can do is hover over them, and if you take a look at the histogram in the upper right hand corner, you can see my reds are 152, my greens are 122, and my blues are 118. This is a heavy red area, so when I make any adjustments to this area, and we'll look at that here in a second, you're gonna see the red channel or the red range really jump up, and then we're gonna see some changes in the green and the blue, but very subtly, as there's not as much information as there is in the red channel. And this is 165, so, and that makes sense, right? This is a piece of bread that's mostly brown, so brown and red and yellow kind of make it brown, right? So it makes sense. Now we come down to the range slider. The range slider allows you to choose how specific of a color you are going to select. So if you come all the way down, it's not selecting anything, and as you move it up, it's going to start to pick up across the image or wherever you put your mask how much red is available. And you have this for every single one of these colors, and this is where, you know, the true power of being able to adjust your color comes in, because once you affect the range, now you can affect the hue. So I'm going to bring this more into a purple magenta looking color, and as you can see, I've already manipulated this area, and it actually changes some of the values just based off of me moving that slider. So that's something for you to keep in mind. All right, now if you ever want to reset, you could double click the name and it resets all of the sliders, and that's pretty much the same in any filter, so functionality there is the same. So if you're on the 21.5 version, you can click inside of there, and as long as there's a white dot, you can use your up and down arrow keys. As you can see, I'm not clicking with my mouse, I'm using my up and down arrow keys since I was able to click in there. And you can move these around as you kind of look at the picture. Just don't use your left and right arrow keys, otherwise you're going to move to another photo. So and that could be annoying. Now, the hue is just going to give you exactly that, the hue. And you can change this for every single color here, right? So I can have some wonky colors in this image if I really, really wanted to. Now, there's not too many blues in this image, so that's not a big deal. But reds, yellows, and oranges, those are in here. Like, that changes the mood of the photo drastically, right? Now, I'm going to reset all of that just so we can keep up with what's going on. And I'll click on orange because I think that's where we're going to see, yeah, we'll see the most change here. The next one is going to be brightness, right? And this is really easy. How bright do you want the color, or how dark do you want the color? So this essentially, if you're coming from Lightroom, this is your HSL adjustment, your hue, saturation, and luminance, but they just call it brightness here. The difference that you get from Lightroom to, or in ON1 as opposed to Lightroom, is this range feature. I don't recall being able to minutely or choose how strong I want this effect to be. And the cool thing here inside of ON1 is not only can you mask it, but you can also add another filter. So maybe you want to work with just the red, oranges, and yellows on one filter, and then work on your blues, purples, and magentas in a completely different picture. In a completely different filter, and then mask those two in. That could be a way. Now, you have one last option down here. If you click this drop down arrow, it'll give you 3 options, and each of these options are specific to these 3 faders up here: hue, saturation, and brightness, or hue, saturation, and luminance. If you want to adjust the saturation, which is typically where I start with a color, is you select adjust saturation, and then you click this eyedropper, and we'll come over here to these greens, and I'm just going to slide this to the right, and as you can see, it identifies that, hey, those are green. We're going to go over to the green channel, and we're going to start moving saturation. So if you don't know anything about colors, you don't really have to. You can just look at the image and say, you know what, I want this to be a little bit darker, I want this to be a little bit brighter. Now, what's cool again is you can adjust the range. So I don't think there's much else that's green in here, but you can move this down and up. That, obviously is not a really good demonstration, but we'll go ahead and reset that. And then I'm going to adjust the saturation of this cutting board. And as you can see, it's starting to affect other things inside of the photo. It's really getting to this bread over here. But if I bring the range down, it's going to start focusing more on just the color of the cutting board. Now, I may only want to apply this setting to the cutting board. This is the power of ON1. Without having to go to any other application, I can click on the masking tool here, and you can just mask in. Just make sure that you're on paint in. And then I will invert this because it's a lot easier for me to see what I'm painting in as opposed to painting out. And then you literally just paint over the areas that you want to add this particular effect to. Now, the limitation to painting in this type of effect in this way is that you are limited to the areas in which you paint. So that means, and this is where you would start to add in additional color adjustments, right? So I did that color adjustment, and now maybe I want to focus in more on the bread and change the way that the bread looks. So I'll hit add filter, and I'll click on color adjustment again. And this time I'm going to go with saturation, click this particular icon, and I think this is a good color. I want to boost the saturation in the bread. Not that I would ever really want to do this, but I'm just showing you, a workflow. Don't worry about the cutting board because we're going to mask it in again. And maybe I want to bring that range down to just some of the tones that I selected. And maybe I want to make it a little bit darker overall. Yeah, that way it looks like the bread is like really cooked. And then I'm going to come up to my mask. I'm going to invert this, and you guessed it, all I'm going to do is make a larger brush size, and then I'm just going to paint over. Now, if you wanted to, I can hit reset, and I can go with my opacity, because maybe I made a heavy-handed adjustment over here, and I don't want all of that on the bread. So I can change my opacity to something lower, and look, now I'm painting in something that's a little bit more natural, and it looks more gradual over time. Maybe I want it on these little slices here. And this is a great way of getting some selective edits into a photo that are very, very subtle. I don't think too many people would look at this and say that looks a little off, but maybe they will. And then maybe I'll do another adjustment here for the greens in the photo. So I'll click color adjustment, and I'll go to my green channel. This time I'm just going to move the saturation, and I want those to be a little bit darker, and maybe even move them. No, yeah, we'll move them a little bit this direction. All right, so same thing, I'm going to mask this in again, invert it, and I'm just going to paint over these, and it gives it a little, this one I could probably go 100% opacity. There's no need for too much subtlety because these greens are already a little muted. So we're just gonna bring a little bit of life and color pop to the photo, right? That's all that we're trying to do here. And you don't have to be overly precise, because the things that I painted, or I'm sorry, the things that I adjusted were really the greens. And that's the beauty of working with this filter. So the before, there we go. The before, kind of flat, not a very exciting photo. And then the after, a little bit more saturated. And you can obviously pull down either individual adjustments, or if I felt that I just put way too much adjustment in there, I can just pull the overall opacity of all the effects down and get something that looks like this. Now, before I close out the video, I do want to show you the color enhancer. Now, this is very similar to the color adjustment, but you have a few more features. All right, I'm not going to get into this because this will be a separate video, but just note that you do have this color adjustment feature here for your white balance and your saturation, your vibrance, all that good stuff. And then there's also a place to protect highlights and shadows that are specific to the color range that you are selecting, the overall tonal range that you are affecting. And then you still have exactly what you have in the color adjustment with each of the channels. This one can be a little bit more cumbersome, but either way, they both do the same thing. This one just gives you a few more options. So if you found value in today's video, go ahead and smash the like button. If you're interested in seeing content like this, consider subscribing. I post videos on a very consistent basis to help new photographers get their creative vision out and into the world. If you haven't already, check the description box below. There's an affiliate link. If you want to get ON1 Photo Raw, just try it out. Using that link does support the channel, and it's at no extra cost to you. Last but not least, if you are interested in joining the mailing list, just for doing that, you will gain 3 free presets, and there's more to be delivered in the future. So until next time, I want you guys to stay inspired and keep creating. Peace.